Meet. Hello everybody, welcome to the last day of the Team Cats Week, Boson Players Week from Cats Protection. Once again, we are here fundraising for Cats Protection. I've been spending the week doing live streams, working on a bunch of projects. I wanted to have a bit of a summary of what's going on with the project I spoke about and started this week, or completed in some cases, and just have a little bit of a ramble about other things that I didn't get to and I wanted to get to, and I may hopefully get to in the future, and also a bunch of things that just annoy me and I need to find a good answer to. While everybody gets ready, I'll start, as the last couple of times, with a cat video provided by Cats Protection. So here it is. Please join me in the chat if you joined the stream and you want to ask any questions about the stuff that I worked on this week or any other week.
While being absolutely adorable and thoroughly entertaining, newborn kittens are a huge responsibility. At this stage in their life, kittens are extremely vulnerable and susceptible to disease. So if you are caring for newborn kittens, it's vital you're informed about their development as much as possible, so you can give them the best possible start in life. Newborn kittens should weigh approximately 90 to 110 grams each. If the queen is relaxed, it's recommended you weigh the kittens at birth and every day thereafter, keeping a daily record to ensure they are gaining around 10 to 15 grams each per day, doubling their birth weight by the time they are 2 weeks old. At birth, kittens' eyes will be closed and won't begin to open until approximately 10 days later, but this could take until they are 16 days old. The iris, the coloured part of the eye, stays a blue-grey colour for 4 to 6 weeks before changing colour permanently. Kittens will begin to crawl at 7 to 14 days and begin to walk after 2 weeks. It's important you are aware of this so you can keep an eye out for any runaways or whether they are likely to get trapped anywhere. Make sure the room you are keeping the kittens in is safe and secure and any holes and gaps are blocked to avoid injury or worse. Kittens cannot pass urine or faeces on their own until around 3 weeks of age, so you should see the queen stimulating the rear ends of each kitten to prompt this. Weaning is the term given to transitioning the kittens from drinking their mum's milk to solid food. This process can begin at 3 to 4 weeks of age and will take several weeks. Start by providing them with some diluted specialised kitten milk replacement in a shallow bowl. You should always follow the product's instructions very carefully to ensure the correct amount, dilution and temperature is used. The next stage is to introduce more solid food. So with clean hands, start to place a small amount of solid food on the kitten's mouth while encouraging them to lap directly from the bowl. Try this process several times a day while kittens continue to suckle. Gradually increase the ratio of food to milk until they are eating solids freely and completely weaned from mum. As the protection from antibodies received in the colostrum wanes, this makes the kittens very vulnerable to disease. As soon as possible, you should seek veterinary advice on the best time and the safest products to use for flea and worm treatment for both queen and her kittens, as well as inquiring about the best time to start their vaccinations. Distressed newborn kittens may be restless, not sleep for long periods and cry excessively. They may also leave the queen and kittening area or stop feeding and have a reduced sucking reflex. It is also possible for the queen to reject her young if she has been distressed at any point after giving birth. If any of the above occur, or you have concerns, you should consult your vet as soon as possible, as the kittens will likely require additional care and supplementary feeding. For some information about kitten behaviour, I'm going to hand you over to Daniel, our Behaviour Manager at Cats Protection.
The most crucial part in a kitten's social development is in the first 8 weeks of their life. This is when the kittens are naturally most curious and before their fear response is fully developed. This is known as the socialisation period. During this time, kittens will need gentle exposure to a variety of stimuli so they can grow into happy, confident pets once rehomed. This includes gentle handling and exposure to different toys and types of litter. If kittens aren't properly socialised during this period, it can lead to long-term behavioural issues and stress, which can lead to some severe health issues throughout their life. For help on how to socialise your kittens properly, including a downloadable socialisation chart to help plan your progress, please visit our webpage. For more information, you should contact your vet or local cat behaviourist. Once fully weaned, it's a good idea to allow the queen to start spending time away from her kittens to help her milk dry up. Kittens can start to spend short periods of time away from the queen from 6 to 7 weeks of age. It is not uncommon for a mum to seek time away from her kittens before 6 weeks, and if she does, you shouldn't worry. However, the kittens will still be learning from her, so should not be fully separated until at least 8 weeks of age. From about 6 weeks, you should move the mum into a completely separate area for an hour or so a few times each day. Ensure that any area has bedding that already has her scent, so this feels familiar to her, as well as feeding enrichment to keep her mind challenged. At around 7 weeks, you can start separating the mother for longer periods of time. Try moving her to her own space during the day, then put her back in with her kittens in the evening time and overnight. The development of kittens may be affected if separated from their mum and littermates too soon, which may cause behavioural and welfare issues throughout the cat's life. So take care to do this gradually over a decent period of time. We hope you've learned a lot about caring for young kittens in this video. The most important thing to remember is if you are unsure of anything throughout your cat's pregnancy, birth, or when caring for kittens, you should consult your vet as soon as possible. For more information, please visit our website.
So as I was saying, this week has been interesting. We managed to get a bunch of things done live on stream. A few others are not quite there, and there are a few things that didn't actually go quite as planned. But let's take a quick look. And of course it doesn't recognize Edge. So this is one of the things that I really need to figure out. Why does Edge not stay connected? It doesn't actually see my Edge window now. Sorry folks, give me just a second. There you go. It was on the right window, it just couldn't capture it. So yeah, this is the original announcement earlier this month, a couple of weeks ago, when I decided to do this week of streams after seeing a cat protection ad on Facebook. And I was planning to wrap up the Maison conversion of Unpaper. That one is wrapped up. Indeed, if you look at Unpaper, not on Travis, but on GitHub, is not only using Maison build and using Python and Pillow for tests, as we did on stream, but it's also, oh, I need to change the build passing, so I will do that right now. It also has been updated on the documentation on building this correctly through Maison. Thank you very much to JPakane. I don't know actually how to pronounce their name, but thank you for contributing the change so that now you can properly build this with Maison. Optimize with link time optimization that works, and that's actually quite awesome. I actually realized while going through all of this that it's due time to move all the sources into a source directory, because yeah, now you have doc, test, licenses, you have a lot of configuration files. and I should probably remove these dear locals in favor of the editor config. Yeah, editor config, which should work much easier for the kind of stuff that we need to do over here. Like, it just set it up once and it will work with all the editors, including Visual Studio Code, which right now doesn't. Now, to be fair, Precommit already includes the Clang format. Probably include black for the text now that I think of it, so we can do a little bit of this cleanup afterwards. But partly wrapped up. It's in main, it's not released, but eventually it will go there. I do have a new glucometer, or rather, I did have a new glucometer to reverse engineer, and that is the glucomet that we finished implementing yesterday. So once again, glucometer utils now supports the glucomet Ario serial cable, not NFC. It does need a new dependency CRC mod for that, but that's also updated. So all of this works as well, and it's also documented. So if you go to protocols glucometers of tech, you can see the Venerini glucomet Ario documentation, including like the connector, serial port configuration, and all the other information on how to talk to this device. I have spoken about one of the adapters, but I have not actually shown the schematics or released them yet, and I think I'll do that soon, probably not today though, about the adapters. The TLRS adapter that I'm using, that I used for the glucomet Ario, is the one thing that I definitely want to release because it's very handy to have around. I also realized that with a little bit more work, this will be an awesome way to have a universal TLRS serial adapter. For now, but doesn't quite work, so I think I'll leave it as it is, and hopefully it should be good enough. But I may think about that further when the Glasgow arrives, so I have a Glasgow version that will do I/O directly. I have not gone through any of the design changes for Birchbooks. Now, for those who have not seen Birchbooks is a set by Lego, there you go, of the bookstore. I love bookstores in general, and I thought this will be a good project to add lights to. So you can see it here with all the lights on. I actually need to change this because I burned through the LEDs too fast, and the new version I want to use 12 volts LEDs instead of the LEDs that I got last time from eBay. That should last much longer, first, and second, they are very, very tiny because they are model making LEDs. But that has pros and cons, of course. I haven't done this yet. I should do this soon. I actually only took Birchbooks out from the packing bags last week, and they moved in October, so that one hasn't happened. I have gone through, yeah. Did I say, no, I didn't say anything about that over here, but I did go through the ESP home pull requests that I had pending for a long while for the CGG1 temperature and humidity sensors, which turned out to be extremely useful because we do have humidity problems and condensation problems in this building. We've had for, like, everybody in this building has had those problems, that includes us now. But yeah, this one is now merged. The next version of ESP Home will support CGG1 and encrypted CGG1 in particular just as well. The issue and the pull request has all the updates. So yeah, I only managed to go through 2 of the 4 points that I wrote down for the week. The glucometer took a bit more than I expected it will take me, mostly because a bunch of tools needed to be updated, and there was some questions on which checksum was used, which took quite a bit of time from me. But otherwise, yeah, I would say it was fairly successful week. We collected 260 pounds for kitties, and that's okay, that's just over 10% of the original goal, but I knew that the goal was just a North Star kind of goal, and I knew that we would not get very close to that as it turns out. But it was still good. Thank you very much to everybody who contributed. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Insomniac. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Anonymous Donors. It's still quite a bit of money for kitties, but will be used to look after kitties during this pandemic. Because, yeah, I feel sorry because I know that there will be more kittens abandoned now that the lockdown eases. Because not everybody is a good person, and I expect that there will be people who decides to abandon their kitties after the lockdown finishes. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to do this. Let's try not to think too much about the sad part on that one. I will say that overall this was a good success. As I said, on paper got to a point where, well, I managed to close a few issues. Some of the projects are addressed, like this project is technically addressed, except that the documentation was not updated to Sphinx entirely. I should probably get to that one day. And I didn't try to run this on Windows. There was a question about FreeBSD. I should probably try to set this up on a FreeBSD virtual machine somewhere. I haven't bothered yet. Sorry, folks. I may still do it. I don't know when, because yeah, I don't really spend that much time on paper usually. I've been doing that on the streams, and it was mostly as a way for myself to learn A, what tools are available out there, and B, how to speak to pretty much empty room, which is what everything seems to be at work nowadays as well, with everybody being remote. And believe me, it's not easy to try to do a presentation without having a room to read on whether you're going well or not. So chapeau to all the live streamer, all the TV presenters that are currently working without an audience, or with virtual audiences who are not that much better, I will say, in my opinion. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. I also merged in Mergify support, so now all of the, well, not any right now, but hopefully in the future there will be more pull requests for paper, and I can just approve them and get them auto-merged, going through CI and everything. Off camera, because there was a bunch of things that needed authorization and stuff, I also set up CI with GitHub Actions. So now you can see that it builds with GCC and Clang and optimized and LTO, because I know that it behaves slightly differently on each one of these versions. It's very interesting that the GCC with LTO and without is about the same speed, and without any optimization it takes nearly 3 more minutes. On Clang there is 1 extra minute running the test when using the LTO, but I assume that it is actually spent in the build rather than in the running test. And otherwise it is 1 extra minute on Clang. Like, there is a significant difference between GCC and Clang build. It's a full minute. It actually makes a difference on build and test. But it's building and testing. I also contributed a fix to the Maison documentation on how to set up GitHub Actions for Maison, because it was not doing this quite correctly. There was a simple typo that happened when things were changed around. That one has been merged already, so now you can follow the documentation, everything works fine. I should do the same work on migrating to the GitHub Action CI instead of Travis for glucometer utils, but that will likely be for later. I was planning on doing some Home Assistant work today, but then I realized that I don't really need to do any of that, so let me show you what I mean. Finally, I managed to get Home Assistant to work and show up on stream. By the way, this is our dashboard for the Home Assistant here at home. You can see how, as I was saying the other day, these are the uncollected packages that still need to be picked up. In this case, there is none. If there is any package that arrives that gets held by concert downstairs, this turns to 1, and then we can go and collect them, and it turns to 0. This also sends a notification to our phones, which makes it much easier, particularly in the future when we will finally leave the doors of this building for most of the day. It would be nice to know whether you need to pick up something on your way back instead of coming upstairs, noticing and having to go downstairs. So that one works well. You can see here all the lights for the study where I am right now. These are custom integrations as well, which I will show in a moment. There is this thing about bathroom, and I'll get to that in a moment because this is actually what I wanted to talk. And there is flux. So what I wanted to do today was to just write an automation that will change the light, the temperature of the lights in the study depending on time of day, so that it starts cool, warm. The Kelvin temperature, I'm always confused. It starts bluish early in the morning to wake myself up, and then gradually gets to reddish so that it doesn't keep me awake overnight. I know that there are plenty of ways to set that up with Philips Hue or with LifeX directly, but most of those presume to work to turn on the light and to set them to that temperature. I wanted to just write my own automation for that. Turns out that I didn't have to, because Home Assistant already includes that. That's why I couldn't find a blueprint or anything for it. The integration is called Flux. You cannot configure it from the UI. You need to configure it from the config file, which is why I didn't know it was an option. But when you turn that on, and this time it's on, I should actually move it here. I'll do that now. When you turn that on, instead of controlling the temperature of each light by itself or the group of lights by itself, it will just control it for you, and it will adapt it every 30 seconds, doing a slow migration over, which is actually very, very nice. I have to say, it works very well. Now, let's do the right thing here, because I added it there as Flux, but I should move it there in the study, because these can be configured for different light groups, and this is why I actually care about it. This is the flux for the study. This doesn't change the temperature of other lights, such as the one in the bedroom or in the bathroom. Now, the one in the bathroom doesn't actually have temperature controls, because those are just white spots instead of temperature controlled white spots. The one in the bedroom are, because these are all ambient, so these could also be controlled that way. But I care about it in the office. The bedroom has mostly the same throughout. So this part is done. I can turn it on and off. I will probably leave it always on unless I need it to be light blue during the day, which I don't think it's going to be the case anytime soon. That's part of the reason why I switched from LifeX RGB lights to white ambience spots from Hue. Well, I needed to switch because the housing for the lights didn't fit all the LifeX ones that we have, and I need to probably reset them and see if anybody wants them, because we are not currently using them and they're just collecting dust in a drawer. That's not great. It doesn't look like LifeX is making more of them anyway, so that's going to be another thing. I have, as I said, recently added lights to the bathroom, but are also controlled by hue, so they're hue lights, which is very handy. This was inspired by some of Big Clive's videos on YouTube, who pointed out that running LEDs at very low brightness consumes pretty much nothing, and it's still plenty to walk around overnight without ruining your night vision or waking yourself up. Turns out that that is absolutely the case, and instead of waking ourselves up with a very clicky switch that we have for the bathroom, there is now one single spot at 2% all the time in the shower, so it's the furthest away from the door, and you can use the restroom just fine overnight. You don't wake up, you don't end up waking anybody else up, so that all of that is nice. There are also different configurations during the day, if you're cleaning, if you're taking a shower. It's all handy to have all the scenes set up, right? And that's where I got the idea of trying to automate a little more. One of the things that we were hoping to have back in the previous flat as well will be a way to say, hey, I want to take a shower, turn on the hot water as well as the towel rack and everything else. Well, turns out that that's not quite feasible. Even when we had Google Nest Learning Thermostat in the flat, the Google Nest Thermostat does have, in Europe, does have support for controlling the hot water and to enable hot water boost. Unfortunately, the hot water boost is not part of the learning features of the thermostat, which I never understood why, given that it will be perfectly reasonable to say, hey, I boost the water every morning at 8 because I'm taking a shower. Learn to just have the water hot in the morning at 8. Why do I not do it? I don't know. And B, there is no API, even first-party API, to control that hot water boost, which means you cannot ask Google Assistant to turn it on for you. And you couldn't control it from the Home app on your phone when they started merging Home and Nest app. You could only do that through the Nest app. And I know that this is because these features are only available in the European edition of the Nest thermostat. I know it sounds silly, but that's the way it worked out. So that particular thing never worked out well. I was looking at some point, and I did ask authorization to my landlord and received authorization for it to replace the towel rack switch. The towel rack is used not just for drying towels, obviously, but also to warm up the bathroom in most British baths, showers, bathrooms. And most of those have two switches, one inside the bathroom on the actual rack and one on the outside, which just cuts off the power to the towel rack itself. And that usually comes with the fuse and everything. And I was hoping to replace that one with something smarter, because you don't usually use the towel rack during the summer to warm yourself up. You do use it over the winter. You don't want to keep it on for long. Usually you turn it on, you take a shower, you want it to dry a little bit, and then you want it to go off by itself, maybe after an hour. None of the towel racks that I've seen up to now come with a timer. You have no way to just say, hey, turn it on now and turn it off in an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And I was looking for switches that would have a timer. I did find one that had the timer but was not available. I was looking around for switches that would work and could be controlled by software. But the problem with that was I couldn't find an electrician who would be interested in figuring out the right, correct by specs and correct by law switch to use for a towel rack, because I think it should be a 16 amperes fused switch, and like I'm not an electrician. I have very little knowledge of the rules for electricians in this particular country. And so, yeah, I wasn't going to guess myself what the right answer for that would be. And nobody was giving me a good answer as to what options would I have for that. So, a few months ago, I saw on Techmon's YouTube channel the Switchbot. He was showing the curtain version of a Switchbot. But he also had a few of these, and this was interesting. The Switchbot is very similar to those useless machines that just have, like, you flick a switch and there is an arm coming out to just flick the switch back. It's a kind of version of the same thing, except that it has an arm that just presses a button. And yeah, the default copy of showing, hey, just use this to press the button on your coffee machine in the morning. Get a coffee machine with a timer. It's probably cheaper, particularly because if you can make yourself coffee with automated machines like this, it's probably cheaper to just get one that has a timer that just makes it for you. But it has these two more useful modes, like it has the press and pull back. So you can pull back a switch and turn it both ways. And you can see here, it's just, it uses that. This is a typical American switch, very light press switch, right? But it does have a set of different drawings of how it works. You can see this one on slightly more complicated switches. These on the very membraney light switches. Those are a useful way to do all of these. Makes sense, right? And if you look, yeah, King of Retrofit. The good thing about this is you don't need any permissions or anything because you just stick on the thing, right? You can press and you can have it pull the other way. You see here on and off, not a problem, right? And you can see that here it shows you, like, you can press this one, these are the Philips ones, and I'm like, why would you put a Switchbot on a Philips button? I don't know, like, you already control that. Anyway, it just says it's not compatible. Most of the buttons and switches except US toggles. Yeah, that's kind of a problem. It has this whole thing of like showing like different options all fast. Wall switch UK, socket switch. Yeah, it doesn't work, not for us. And most of these are positive. There are people who are using it just fine. Somehow somebody's using it for an immersion switch and it seems to be working fine. For our tower rack, this doesn't work. It just doesn't have the torque to do it. It will move and it won't have enough force to actually push the button in because it's a very clicky, very heavy duty button. And so it doesn't push all the way in. And same thing, if it is on trying to pull it off, it just pulls the adhesive back out instead because it's very sturdy. It needs quite a bit of force to push in and push back out. So I gave up on that option. And instead, I connected it to our hot water boost button for the immersion heater so that we can actually turn on the immersion heater remotely, which is also something handy that the Nest couldn't do, or could do on the app, but couldn't do on the Home Assistant. This thing does. But it has a problem as well. If you see on the actual Home Assistant window, this shows up as a switch because that's what it does. The integration for the Switchbot is a switch which has an on and off state. It doesn't have a push button mode, which is what I would want, which is just push it. I don't care if the hot water boost button for our immersion heater, you push it once, it turns on, it turns off by itself after some time. I haven't actually measured how long it takes. And similarly, if you press it again while it's on, it will turn itself off. So yeah, it kind of has an on and off state, but it doesn't work quite the same way as Home Assistant thinks it works. It doesn't turn, if it is quote unquote off and I turn it on, yes, it will turn on. But if it thinks it's on and I'm turning it off, it still turns on if it was off. So that doesn't quite work the right way. Now, this is interesting because most of the examples over here appears to be for things that need to be turned on and off, either by pressing the same button, like this one most likely has the same thing, or there is another image somewhere here. Oh, maybe it was over here. Yeah, this one is likely turning on and off on a single button, like it's a toggle button. And pretty much this one as well. It's just a toggle button, like you want it to press. You don't need to press and get a state. The interesting part for the PC is I was half tempted to connect it to my game station because the button is actually out of reach, and I may put it even further out of reach if I shuffle a little bit around. And given that I can't get Wake Up on LAN to work quite well, that was an option. Like that was something that I was considering for a very brief period of time. I will probably not be as silly as to do that, but the end result is this one as well. Like you press the button to turn on to make the coffee. You don't have a state to change by pressing the button twice. Why is there no push button mode for this on Home Assistant? I don't know. I will probably have to add it to retrofit it somehow so that I can have that option. The problem with that is that I also need to have a timer that tells me like how long was it since it pressed, and if it hadn't pressed yet, like yeah, it's going to be a bit complicated because I essentially need to have an external way to maintain the state of whether the hot water is on or not, depending on whether I press it there. On the bright side, we never go and press it on the actual button, so yeah, this one works well enough. It is just slightly annoying. Now, for the other thing that I wanted to say, that it is custom integration here. Never mind the Chromecast not being available right now, that's a different story. But you can see here, like, code is where it has the screen. The Bravia TV only has on and off here, but it will also have, like, if I were to turn it on, it should turn on. It should say that it's turning on, unless it's erroring out, which it might be. It should have transmitted status, like it definitely transmitted the command to turn it on, because I can see it from the code. It somehow doesn't see the state as being on, so I probably have a bug in the source code of this. Let me go and open the integration just in case. But the short version of this is this allows me to change the inputs with my software-defined remote control, because I have a Rube Goldberg machine pretty much right now connected to that has an infrared LED that is sitting next to the TV, glued to a wood phone holder, essentially. It's something fairly silly, but it was just like something that wouldn't look totally out of place where it is. As it turns out, you don't really need to do anything fancy with 3D printing or anything like that. If you want to hide an infrared LED, you just need to stick it to something, like on a negative space onto something where it doesn't look entirely out of place, and it will look okay enough. And from there, it should show me the inputs. Let me just, let's say HDMI switch. That's a Bravia TV. They changed this one to shoot both false by mistake. And now this one does change the state. I don't know why it's not changing the state right now. Okay, I may have to figure it out later because this one should have been working fine. The HDMI switch, similar thing, it has a source, it reports the source list because I'm sending that from the other device. This one is even slightly sillier because the switch that I'm using has a remote control infrared receiver connected to a TRS jack. The same usual phone jack, but we were looking for serial ports earlier. And so instead of going through an infrared LED just to be received by the infrared receiver, I'm using a Y cable and then just plugging directly into the infrared receiver port and then just sending the command there without dealing with the 38 kilohertz carrier wave at all, and just sending the pulses there, the pulse stream there. I would like to show you that, but I don't actually have all the hardware to do that to show on stream. I may do that later on, and I'll get to why in a moment. I'm still surprised that this thing doesn't seem to. This should be on right now, because when I press this, it should just change the state, and it doesn't. So I'm actually a bit annoyed by this. I'll try restarting with this one and I'll see if this one works. The good thing is I don't need to toggle it on and off because there is no, actually let me do some configuration. There is no need for me to keep track of whether I turn it on enough to send a different command, because Sony has discrete turn on, turn off commands. And so when you want to turn it on and it's already on, it just sends a command but doesn't do anything. Yeah, there you go, now it turns on, and when it turns on, I also have a source list selection, which is just 2. Technically it could add more because I do have a Commodore 64 connected to, well, supposedly a Commodore 64 connected to this thing on this card, and that one can also be selected because, again, I don't need to go into the cycle through inputs mode. Sony does have all of that as separate commands. Let me show you a little closer what I mean. So, back to the browser. I don't remember which. Oh, it's on PyCirc probably. Yeah, there you go. I need to rename this thing. It should not be PyCirc anymore. I started calling it Circ because I wanted to just deal with the Sonic TV. But now it has NAC commands and a bunch of other things, so I should probably just rename it. But if you look at the examples in CircuitPython, the Sony remote has video 1, video 5, video 6. Like this one is card, this one is HDMI 1, and this is HDMI 2 on my TV in particular. So if you send this command over here, which is command 72, then to the TV, because you need to send it to the TV, then it will just do the right thing and select that input without cycling through. And if it is already selected, it just stays selected. So you don't have to keep most of this as state. This, by the way, is and yes, it's copyright my employer because I did this without signing, without requesting the copyright to be assigned back to me. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, this is for Circuit Python. It assumes the correct IR LED, so a 930 nanometers, I think. I think it's 940, I don't remember. Connected to D5 line with high corresponding to on, so either with a common cathode or with a transistor. I should probably make this more configurable, to be honest. These are just two of the devices, the standard devices. I don't expect anybody has a VCR nowadays. I don't expect anybody has anything else but the TV that they control over IR at this point. For nearly everything else, you would use Bluetooth anyway. And you can see that everything else is like, if it is in the command sense a thing, you can select custom devices, you can select 8-bit and stuff like that. There is a bunch of things that you can do with this way to use it. I've been using this to just scroll through the whole possible selection of commands you can send to a TV with IR codes. This is my way to test whether it works at all even, and it just raises and lowers the volume. I should probably use that as well to keep the TV on, because it has those auto turn off every 2 hours, which is fine unless I'm watching something. It would be nice to not have it go into, particularly if I'm playing, to be honest, because I don't want it to go into sleep because I don't have the remote control at hand while I'm playing. And this is the HDMI switcher, like it just changes the input. I haven't published the code that uses this but controls the TV. I'm planning on doing that. I was planning on doing that over stream. I will probably do that next week or sometime like that. The code is all here anyway. This is all up to date. This is the Circuit Python transmitter. This is the encoder and decoder. One may wonder why am I not doing this with ESP Home, because ESP Home does have a way to transmit to IR, if I remember correctly. So let's see, it should be under MISC component. Remote receiver, remote transmitter, there you go. So the problem with this is that you need to manually mark the actions you're doing. And B, like you can transmit row, but then it has transmit JVC, transmit LG, transmit NEC, transmit Sony. But way it does transmit Sony, it's kind of awful. In the sense that this is not the way you address the Sony commands. And it's okay if you know what you want to send, so you can just configure it to do the transmission the way you want it. But if you know what the command is that you want to send and you want to transmit it as a normal Sony command, it doesn't quite work. So that's why I've been avoiding using this at this point. I may go and try to change this somehow. Or maybe I'll just add to PyCirc a way to generate the row commands, because these are the codes, these are just commands. What I don't know is whether it will be able to do a carrier frequency of 0. And the reason for that is this, this is the transmit. I don't always need to have this as how do I say this? As I said, the HDMI switch that I'm using doesn't actually transmit over the IR, so it doesn't need a carrier frequency. I don't want the carrier frequency at all. I want a carrier duty percent to be 100% and to just not bother with the carrier frequency. It turns out this is also not as easy to do on a CircuitPython Feather, at least on the NRF that I was using, because if I set it to 0 Hertz, just doesn't send anything. If I set it to 1 Hertz, sometimes there is a bit of a blip. It's not quite as perfect as you will want it to be, so maybe this will actually work. I should try. Maybe I'll try it on stream one day, not today. Also because I need to like connect everything onto a breadboard and connect it to a salary most likely to see the things that are going on or not. So this is one of the things that I may eventually get to. Will be nice to not have to have a computer running just for that, but at the same time, it still means you need a set of devices to just deal with this over Wi-Fi next to a TV. We win some, you lose some. I'm using the same machine that I'm running Kodi on right now, connected with a bunch of devices. I was hoping to do it with something that is less extensive than a feather, because to be honest, it feels like a bit of an overkill to use a whole feather just to control the TV. But when I try to just use GPIO from like a board like Adafruit FTDI 232 with Blinka, it doesn't quite support what I need, because it doesn't have a way to set a timer on the GPIO and have accurate timing for it. So maybe I could build something, but yeah, I haven't done that yet. I have also been hoping to get myself one of these to try. These are the new Raspberry Pi RP2040 chips that have a programmable I/O mode, which should make it much easier to send IR code out. The feather exists. Like you can see here, it's like 16 PWM outputs. And 4 12-bits ADC. I don't actually need any of those. Yeah, that's a RGB NeoPixel. I don't need any of that. Like this is once again, this is a huge like overkill for what I'm looking for. I would like to play with it pretty much. It is a dual-core M0. It's very fast dual-core M0. It's definitely overkill for what I need, but I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it. What I did get my hand on it is the SparkFun one. Plus, sorry, it took me a while to find. No, it's not that one either. Looking for the right page. Yeah, so what I did manage to get my hands on is this one, which is a SparkFun. Still same RP2040, should be pretty much the same as the feather from that point of view. I don't actually have a stackable header kit. I should have gotten myself a set of that one for this one. Never mind, that's not important. I did manage to get one of these. I haven't tried it yet because I've been busy doing this. I haven't even soldered the headers on it. And also it doesn't quite support CircuitPython yet. Now there is a pull request. And that's been merged 11 days ago. So hopefully it is kind of done. It's not on the CircuitPython website yet. I don't think it is, at least. It wasn't the other day. Let's see. Yeah, it's not listed here yet. The other SparkFun ThinkPlus SMD51 is here. I do wonder why the other one isn't here yet. Maybe it's just a matter of the build not out yet. Yeah, I should probably ask around. I think there was a new release. Oh, because this is 620 beta. 620 beta 4, maybe there is a board for this one. Let's see. No. Oh, these are since 6.20 beta 3. I do wonder, because this says the micro mode and the Pro Micro are supported, and the Think Plus should have been even earlier than that. Okay, that's interesting. I'll see if there is a binary for it hidden somewhere, where maybe. So yeah, there isn't really much else to say. I guess once this is, like, if I get this to work a little better, I could just get a tiny 2040, which should do all I need as well. This is much smaller. Again, it's very overkill for what I need, but it doesn't have, like, this is still smaller than the SparkFun Think Plus. This one comes with SD card support as well. I don't need any of that. Yeah, this would have worked fine. Like, this would probably work fine for what I'm looking for. I may just get myself one of these and to play with. But yeah, that's essentially it. Again, no questions in the chat for me to talk about besides the stuff that I've ranted on already. So I guess I will call it now. And if anybody has further questions for this, feel free to ask on Twitter or on the blog. I will be writing a summary of this on the blog. And if you have missed any of the previous videos for the series, all of them are on Flameeyes.tv, which is just the link to YouTube. And you can see there is a playlist with all the cat protection streams for the week. And there may be more of these later on. I don't know. I'll see. I don't have any plans for any more. Well, definitely not for any more weeks of streams. I don't really have any plans for more streams, structured streams just yet. But if you think that there is any interest on it, please let me know. Anyway, enjoy your day, folks. See you next time.